every minute with the fever dreams. I push a mind to a limit where it needs to feed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss. See, I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Took until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see matter of fact.
Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind you know I'll always manifest it.
Hello and welcome to My Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick, and another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Not really beautiful. It's raining. I feel achy. I feel crappy. I feel like I'm getting sick a little bit because I kind of feel it in my throat. So that's a sign of things to come, and I feel like I might be getting sick again. But we're gonna catch up on some news, see what's going on in this wild world that we live in, and we'll do it together here real quick. I hope you guys are having a good day wherever you're at. I hope it's a productive day for you. For me, I'm working on it. My body is just not cooperating with me, but it is what it is, and let's start from the top and work our way down. We got a couple of videos to go through. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and possibly 10 videos. So let's get right to it because it's going to be busy. Let's get busy here. Let me just set everything up for us here quick. I think we got the good settings. Let's make this enlarge and let's play.
And the FBI is taking a closer look at 3 of DC's biggest unsolved mysteries in recent history, all of which were investigated under the Biden administration without yielding any results. So what are they? David Spunt, live from the Justice Department with more. Good morning, David.
Dana, good morning to you. This news coming from Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino. Let's see what he posted over the weekend on social media. Then I'll take you through each of the cases. He said, we made the decision to either reopen or push additional resources and investigative attention to these cases. The cases are the D.C. pipe bombing investigation, the cocaine discovery at the prior administration's White House, and the leak of the Supreme Court Dobbs case. That's the case overturning Roe v. Wade. I received requested briefings on these cases weekly, and we are making progress. Let's start with the pipe bomber. The Bureau continues to analyze video of a masked suspect planting a pipe bomb near the bench outside both the DNC and RNC headquarters on January 5th, 2021, the night before the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Luckily, no one was injured and the bombs did not detonate. The second investigation Dana Bongino and Director Kash Patel want to look into, the cocaine found at the White House in July 2023. It was found in a locker of the West Wing of the White House in a publicly traveled area where tours go by, but the Secret Service never identified a suspect. Finally, the third case, the leak of the Supreme Court draft overturning Roe v. Wade in the spring of 2022. This is a big one. Politico received a draft copy and published it weeks before the Supreme Court overturned the federal right to abortion. As to how the reporters received it, we still don't know. The Supreme Court, Dana and Bill, did an internal investigation through the marshal of the court, but they never were able to publish any information or never were able to find it, or they did find it. We just don't know who they are. But now the FBI is taking a look.
Okay, we'll find out what happens. Thanks, David.
So a lot to get to. Trey Gowdy joins us now. Trey, nice to see you, host of Sunday Night in America. I want to go over a couple of things here. On the Supreme Court deal, Kerry Urban was reporting that they interviewed 120 people and they all signed affidavits. And they also interviewed all the 9 justices, but they did not sign affidavits. And I think what Dan Bongino and maybe Kash Patel are doing is kind of interesting. Yesterday, Bongino sent this long post out on X, and here's the one I want to read to you. The director and I have done only one media interview together. We decided early on to limit our media footprint overall in order to keep the attention on the work being done. That said, here is a clip from that one interview, May 18th with Maria. Watch.
Look, I can speak to the folks that were in our seats, our predecessors, and they intentionally failed the American public by putting on the biggest DC deception game we've ever seen. They said the FBI was the most storied institution for law enforcement, and it was, and it will be again very soon. It's a good thing we're here now to clean it up, and you're about to see a wave of transparency.
I mean, Trey, what do you read into all that?
Well, I think the weakest of the 3 investigations is the Supreme Court leaking of the Dobbs decision, because I don't know what federal statute they would be investigating. It's immoral. It probably breaks Supreme Court rules. It's going to get you fired. But what's the federal crime? Plus, you got some branch issues, Bill. I mean, you got the executive branch investigating the judicial branch. Look, I want to know who leaked the opinion. But in terms of federal crimes, you got to start with the D.C. bombing, because I'm almost positive you can't plant a bomb outside any building. Mm-hmm. So I really want to know that. And then secondly, even in Washington, shockingly, cocaine is against the law. So I want to know that, too. Kudos to them for continuing investigations. And I don't understand the argument against continuing an investigation if the statute of limitations hasn't run yet.
And then,
exactly.
So does it matter if affidavits were signed or not?
No, affidavits are completely inadmissible in criminal court. You can't cross-examine an affidavit. So could you pursue someone for lying to the FBI? It depends on who interviewed them. I mean, who asked for the affidavit? I would rather have a sit-down interview with a law enforcement officer with consequences for lying than an affidavit, most of which are not worth the paper they're printed on.
Okay, if you follow this case in Nashville, where the mayor is under suspicion for helping for hindering ICE and helping illegal immigrants. Here's a congressman now from Tennessee. Andy Ogles is his name, from Monday.
The individuals that the mayor is standing with are murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, sexual predators, child traffickers. The list goes on. Which is why I will always stand on the rule of law and with ICE. Because we, the people, have had enough. I choose my community, my state, and my family over this type of nonsense.
What do you make of this, Trey? Because it seems that this is going to go on for some time. You had that judge up in Wisconsin that we covered, and then you had all those camera angles from inside the courthouse when she was trying to help illegals escape ICE agents who were in the hallway. And how often
You
does
also
this
had
go
a member
on?
of Congress arrested. Yeah, you also had a member of Congress arrested for hindering or interfering or assaulting an ICE officer. I do not get very excited when members of Congress talk about pursuing criminal charges because they have no power to do so. I would be really excited if the U.S. Attorney in Tennessee or the SAC, the head of the FBI in Tennessee, or Kash Patel were talking about pursuing criminal charges against the mayor. What I just heard was a political speech. So you can go investigate all you want, but it's actually a crime to interfere with the apprehension of a fugitive. It's a crime to aid and abet the absconding of a fugitive. So I need to hear from law enforcement and prosecutors and not politicians who are just going to fundraise off of it.
All right, Trey
Exactly.
Gowdy, thank you so much. Hey, you're going to be on Perino on Politics podcast. I'll see you there.
Man,
I can't wait. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
really good.
Hey, it's Will Kane.
That was really good. Yeah, make accountability great again. Please make it great again. Let's take a break from the news real quick. Let's go into the weather because there's a first tropical storm of the season on the Eastern Pacific side. Tropical storm Alvin has developed. Let's go ahead and check in on that.
Welcome back to Weather Command. Britta Merwin, Stephen Morgan here. It's the bottom of the hour, and if we were to dice it up today, tropics has our attention, but so do those storms. And we are joining you live here with an update. The National Hurricane Center just providing that newest update from Tropical Depression 1E that we were formerly following. You got to give our graphics team some time because the name has arrived.
Tropical Storm Alvin. It is now official. So our first tropical storm of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season, but also just in totality hurricane season, whether you're talking about the East Pac or the Atlantic, the first named storm of the season is a big deal. So there you have it. Winds are now at 40 miles per hour. It's moving northwest at 10 miles per hour. So still with that westerly component is going to allow the potential for more time over very warm water. The farther north we go with this, the closer we get to that extreme drop-off where temperatures go from the 80s to the 60s very quickly. And that ultimately is the direction we're going. Alvin will meet a huge demise. Cold water, strong wind shear, all things that we love to tell you because the impact from Alvin is going to be rather limited. It's going to drift up towards Cabo, fall
Okay,
apart.
let me pause it here real quick. This storm is ahead of its time right now. If this is a sign of things to come, it's going to be a very, very, very active season. Let me move myself over here for a sec. Here we go. It's going to be a very active season. As you can see here, it's pretty nice. It looks like it's getting its act together. Moving northwest at 10, so it's moving like this way, this direction. But it's gonna supposedly come up and come to Cabo San Lucas. Probably split between. I go to the Bay of California, the California Bay here, and just maybe die out because this waters up here are pretty cool. They're, if you give it a day and it reaches into maybe this area right here, you can follow my cursor. It's a really cool waters, and the system will die down. By the time it hits Cabo, it'll probably be maybe a depression. Because it's so early in the season, but look how rapidly the storm has generated. Would it be surprising if it quickly, rapidly develops into a strong tropical storm, maybe in the 60-mile-per-hour winds? There's a good possibility because this area is favorable as far as it has its act together and is rapidly getting itself together. So it will pick up on winds. It might be gusting already into the 60 mile per hour winds. And if the storm gathers a little bit more strength, possibly reach Kabul as a minimum tropical storm, high end depression. Yeah, it could get there. But this season, like I tell you, it's gonna be a very, very, very active season. And the Atlantic and the Caribbean is the Caribbean is gonna see a lot of storms. Yeah, it sucks, but things like this happen now, and it's Mother Nature, and she's going through her cycles. Okay, so we're just in the beginning part of the season. On average, these storms, especially in the Pacific side, on the eastern side, they don't get developed until like June 10th, June 12th. And average, like that's not too far. That's only 12 days from now. So yeah, so June 10th. On average, that's when the Pacific side technically, gets systems that start being named. Now it's on a early track, right? So that means we got to watch the Caribbean, and we got to watch, like, I would say the eastern side of Florida, Bahamas, Gulf of Mexico is always open season. When those waters get hot there and the storms, if they get there at the right time, where it's not so much dry air and it's more favorable, and the Gulf, storms can explode in strength in the Gulf of Mexico, and doesn't take them that long to get as strong as possible. Hopefully this year, man, all it takes is one storm to over exceed itself, to cause major disruption, major damage, loss of life. It's happened so many times. I guess we changed it from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. So the history on the Gulf of Mexico runs really deep with storms. Now we're starting a new era, the era of Gulf of America, and how the Gulf of America is going to treat the states that are covering most of the majority of the coasts of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. This is going to be a tough year. Mexico too. You gotta be ready, because it's going to be a tough year for Mexico too. And let's continue with this Alvin forms in the Pacific.
Lucas is not even calling for tropical storm force winds as we get closer to this weekend. We'll have cloud cover, some showers. That's pretty much it. So you're looking at the next 24 hours being really the peak of Alvin.
And what it seems the National Hurricane Center is thinking with this, being able to read their forecast discussion that was just issued, that the convection and the thunderstorm activity has been persistent this morning, and you've seen a gradual increase in the intensity of these storms. So while we don't have hunters flying into this thing, there has been a noted closed center, and the intensity is ticking up just a little bit. And perhaps we shouldn't be too surprised, because this forecast, which was out earlier, was explicitly showing Alvin becoming Alvin, and maybe a stronger tropical storm.
Yeah, winds will be up to 60 miles per hour by this time tomorrow. So we're going to gain 20-mile-per-hour winds in terms of the wind strength of this. And of course, the pressure will come down as well. But by the time we get to this weekend, we're in that zone where we're running into cooler water, and this storm will not have the ability to hold together. I mean, you drop below 80 degrees and very quickly you see the difference with tropical systems. So, this is a good dry run, folks. If you're going to have a tropical storm, why not have one that brings about the conversation, lets the stage get set, but has a good chance of not causing a massive impact to anyone.
The intensity forecast that we have from the NHC, they're saying is on the higher end of the guidance. So they're equipped with a suite of forecasts that measure the intensity, the predicted intensity, and
the upper threshold of that intensity.
The experts at the NHC, they're saying, you know what, we think that this is going to be on the higher end. And perhaps that speaks to those favorable conditions, not just the water temps, but also this pocket of very low shear. But explicitly mentioned was that this thing is going to be nothing more than a remnant low, but a high confidence that this remnant low, which is a much weaker system, will be affecting Baja California. So Cabo San Lucas, maybe having some impacts, bringing some showers, some squally weather to Puerto Vallarta. That's also a possibility. And you see the general low-level spin. This is by this weekend. So on Sunday, it will be weakening as it moves over those cooler waters. But still, we're getting a low into Cabo. That's going to bring some.
Yeah, I mean, if you're vacationing this weekend, it's not what you wanted during your vacation. It will be cloudy, it will be windy, and we'll have showers that are moving through at a consistent pace. So it's not going to be the best stretch of weather, but at least we're not calling for a strength of a system that would bring power outages or anything like that. That's not in the cards here. So, if you're going to have to go through a tropical storm, this is one that you would prefer because it's one that's weakening and falling apart rather than one that is ramping up. And of course, we're talking about what's happening this upcoming weekend.
Quick.
The next 24 hours is the growth stage.
We're going to see the most impressive growth that the
system has to give over the next 24 hours. And to your point, when you talk about the upper threshold of strength here, the official forecast calling for 60-mile-per-hour winds.
Yeah, you see,
if
60.
we do get a little bit stronger, keep in mind the stronger the system before it decays means we'll have more moisture with it.
Yep.
So if it ends up being sort of in the higher end of tropical storm strength before it weakens, you can't erase the stream. All that moisture, that just means more moisture, and that means that the showers that do move in with this dying.
Okay, see, like it says it's going to reach 50 by this evening, like sometime today, in a few hours, maybe like in 3 hours, 2-3 hours, it's going to be 50 miles per hour. Now, if it could reach it to 60, there's a chance that this is going to be a really strong tropical storm, maybe a very minimum hurricane, very minimum. What I mean by minimum is like 75-mile-per-hour winds. That's it. And once it reaches, maybe around this area right here, it's gonna start dying out. And then when it makes landfall, it'll probably make landfall as a strong tropical depression. Maybe minimum tropical storm, maybe minimum. But this is just a telltale sign of what's to come for the Atlantic and what we're going to end up, dealing with this season. It's going to be a wild one. I feel it's going to be a wild season.
System will be a little more plentiful.
Yeah, that's a good point. The name Alvin, or the first name of any Eastern Pacific hurricane season, is generally assigned over the past 30 years. The average is June 10th. So officially today, we're about 12 days, I think, if I did my math right, 12 days ahead of schedule. So last year, the Eastern Pacific was a little slower to wake up. It was snoozing a bit. Perhaps it was because 2023 was gangbusters. But this year, we're about 12 days early, and to see where this is going to move toward in the general vicinity of Mexico, we'll be watching it. Thank goodness for those cooler temperatures. And that is always a struggle that an east moves north.
There's only one solution, and
Yeah.
it's everything that we want to hear. Cooler weather, wind shear, those are all great things to have on our side, our
Yeah.
kryptonite.
Yeah, but don't be fooled because this is early in the season. Once they reach a little bit into the season, these water warms up, and storms have been able to take off from this area and become category 3, 4s, and possibly even 5s, like really strong, like super hurricanes. And they do die off a bit, but they do stay strong into their Cat 3, Cat 4 territory, and they do make major landfalls in this area, especially like mid-season. Talking about like August. August is it's July, August is really these areas. If this is a sign to come, and these storms are doing this, it's going to be active, and a lot of people are going to end up dying because of it. And it's not because of the strength of the storm, it's the amount of rain that's going to be carrying inland. And a lot of people don't understand. You don't die from the wind, you die more from the water, from the floods of these systems. So keep that in mind. The wind is not going to kill you. It's the rain that will get to you. And as far as like flooding, you get the storm surge, you get a lot of tornadic weather within the system. It's like you get like a buffet dinner of a storm coming at you with lots of possibilities of risk to life. And not only human life, but animal life and life itself, like trees and everything that's in the area, birds, they all suffer. So it's going to be an interesting season. So let's go ahead and go to another story. You know what? Let's get story would I would like to go. Let's get the story that happened here in Waterbury, Connecticut, where you had an individual open fire on 5 individuals that got shot, and no one was killed. Thank the baby Jesus that no one was killed, but they did find the shooter. Now, what age do you think the shooter is? It's not that old. He's 19 years old. A 19-year-old had a semi-automatic weapon, and he discharged his weapon into a mall here in Connecticut and injuring 5 individuals. And he's very lucky that he didn't kill anybody and no one died. But he's definitely going to be seeing some serious jail time for this. And it's a crazy story. So let's go ahead and go to that story.
And later this morning, the Brass Mill Center Mall will reopen for the first time since that mass shooting happened there on Tuesday.
Yeah, your reporter, Roger Susanin, is there live right now outside the mall in Waterbury. And Roger, tell us what we're learning about the victims and the suspect.
Yeah, good morning, ladies. There is a lot going on. A lot of details continue to pour in, and almost all of them are pretty unsettling. Police again tell us that this started as a beef between 2 men, and they claim that one of those men, 19-year-old Taywan Washington, eventually pulled out a pistol and started shooting, eventually shooting 5 people. And now this morning, the mall is set to finally reopen, even as the investigation and the criminal case continue. Now, yesterday, Washington faced the judge, walked into the courtroom for the very first time in this case. He basically stood in stone silence.
Look at his attorney. There's so much to talk about in this picture right here. I mean, look, this is the individual that shot up the mall. They caught him, and this is him, and doesn't have a really positive face at all. This face right here is not really good, especially for society. So he's gonna be seeing jail time for sure. This dude right here, he got a lot of things going on here. I like the plaid suit. Okay, that's fucking cool. All right, the tie is all right. I mean, I would have chose a different color, but I mean, it's all right. It's okay. These glasses, I don't know what's happening here. This is where I'm going like south, and then the hair. Boy, look at this hair. Man, that hair is so healthy. That man has a lot of like. Look at that hair. Like it's like I'm paying attention more to the attorney than I am to this criminal right here that opened fired at a mall not too far from where I live actually. And this attorney right here, man, he even have the shoulder pads and everything. You see here? He got the shoulder pads. So man, he looks like a little running back to me. And he's eating good. He's plumpy. He's eating good, and I'm pretty sure he's pretty smart. But if your client is this individual right here, expect to lose this case. Okay, he's gonna go to jail for a good amount of time, especially for firing a weapon, not probably having a license for that weapon. So many charges just on the weapons charge. They're gonna, and then the attempted murder, because they'll probably elevate to attempted murder 5 cases of attempted murder, and which cause bodily harm. And he is so lucky that he didn't kill someone. He's so lucky, because if he would have killed someone, he would have been charged with murder. Okay, and some of those murder, with the murder charge, it carries life in prison, without parole. So maybe something was looking after him, that he didn't end up killing someone, but he did injure 5 individuals. So he's definitely going to be seeing a lot of time. So let's continue.
The whole time, but his lawyer admits that Washington shot up the mall, but he argues he was trying to defend himself and that a mob of people were waiting to jump him outside Brass Mill Center. Police, though, say Washington had no reason to shoot 5 people, 1 man and 4 women, who are all in their teens or 20s, right near the mall's main entrance. 2 of those victims suffered serious injuries, including 1 woman who was shot in the spine. But incredibly, they're all expected to survive. Police tell us they have plenty of evidence that points the finger directly at Washington, including surveillance video and a statement from one of Washington's friends who was with him inside the mall at the time of the shooting. Brass Mill Center customers know now that the shooting was not random, but they say it's still unnerving.
It's awful. It's scary. I have kids that come here. Sometimes I come here. I mean,
I don't go to that mall.
Go to your mall. It's just ridiculous.
I don't even go to that mall.
Now, mall leaders do insist that the businesses here are completely safe. They say they'll also
That's the hood mall.
Look into ways to improve security. But again, this was not a random
mall.
shooting,
I mean,
the suspect is
the
now
mall's
behind
okay.
the
It has a lot
behind
of
bars.
stores.
Washington, by the way, faces a long list of charges. He's being held on a $2 million bond. The mall is said.
Listen to this. The courts gave him. Hold on. Let me make myself big. The courts gave him a $2 million bond. $2 million. Right? He shot up 5 people. No one died. He opened fired on 5 individuals. Okay. Carmelo Anthony goes to a track meet where he's not even supposed to be. He goes to an area where he's not supposed to be. He sits under a school tent that he doesn't even go to. They asked him to move, and he refused. And until the other kid came and told him, probably you need to move. And then it got a little physical, and then like maybe a shove, like to move out the way, move out the area. And that's when Carmelo said, touch me again and you're gonna see what happens. And the guy pushed him, like shoved him, and he took out the knife from his bag and stabbed him right in the heart. And took it out and left. The twin brother came, and to his brother's and he picked him up, and he had him in his arms, and he was talking to his brother, and as his brother was dying, because he was stabbed in the heart, so it's like he was dying. So I could feel that energy. I could really see that like playing out in my mind. Like I could see it like I'm there. And the fact that there is some video of this, and there is some like a lot of testimony from a lot of people, right? And yet he's out on bond because the judge only gave him $1 million bond, right? And they dropped it all the way down to $250,000 bond for murder. And I feel like that's wrong. That's super wrong. If he's the one, he even admitted it to the police that he did it, that he killed him, that he stabbed him. Like, there's video of this. The police was wearing a body cam. Like, I love how people jump to conclusions and like funded this kid and gave the family so much money, and they didn't even let the investigation transpire. And there is body cam footage of Carmelo Anthony admitting guilt that he did it, and it's and his bond was dropped to only $250,000 for murder. Now you have this kid here up in Connecticut who shot up the mall, and not really shot up the mall, but shot at these individuals that supposedly he was self-defense somehow, because they were saying that he was fear of him being jumped by these individuals. So there's video. Okay. There's video of all this, the whole like situation and everything. There's video of everything because that mall has cameras. They have cameras and they work. And we'll know the truth. They'll know the truth. And they put his bond at $2 million. $2 million. Wow. That's a lot of money. $2 million for shooting 5 people and no one died. But Carmelo Anthony kills someone with a knife, and he gets out on $250,000 bond. There's no, I don't know. I don't. We're living in weird times, my friends. All right, let's go to going to be a back-to-back. Kamala Harris. Let's go jump on Fox News again, Jesse Waters. And we're going to be watching about cackling Kamala Harris with her craziness. She's wild. She's wild. She's lucky. We're lucky she's not president. Oh my goodness, we're so lucky.
Kamala went down under to Australia. She brought Dougie not so fresh. It was a romantic weekend getaway. Walks by the water in the park. Doug leaned in. Never lean in, Dougie. How many times do we have to say it? So what was Kamala doing halfway across the world? Well, she was a surprise guest at a real estate conference. You're probably asking, what does Kamala know about real estate? No idea. The real estate agents at the conference said Kamala lost focus. It was so bad the conference didn't even post a video of her interview.
Wow.
Even though they posted everybody else's. What were they trying to hide? Well, we found out. We got our hands on the tape. And she hasn't changed.
Oh, no.
I have a lived experience that has taught me something I talk about all the time, which is my lived experience that tells me that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And I consider it a blessing and a privilege to have that lived experience in a way that it gives me a true sense of understanding of what is possible when we think of building communities.
Kamala Harris sounds like she's doing an impression of Kamala Harris. And she's still unburdened.
Who fight for freedom. They see what can be, and they're unburdened by what has been. They believe in what is possible. And so even though it may be characterized as a fight, it really is, it should, I think, be thought of in the context of a fight for something.
Why is she narrating?
As opposed to against something.
Kamala hasn't learned a thing, but she swears Barack Obama taught her history. And now she calls herself a student of history.
I think one of the very special aspects of who he is he really is a student of history. And it's critically important because coupled with the enthusiasm that comes with ambition and optimism must be the clear-eyed focus of understanding where we've been. And being a student of history is, I think, one of the best ways to then contextualize the importance and the relevance of what we are doing today.
Oh, no.
Remember when Kamala was really into space? Now she's into history. And like most Democrats, she only knows about World War II. So she flew all the way to Australia to teach them about Hitler.
It's important we remember the 1930s. It's important that we remember that history has taught us that isolation does not equal insulation. It is important that we understand and remember history, which taught us the interdependence and interconnection between nations, the importance of friendships, integrity, honesty. There's so much about foreign affairs that is just like the importance of having good friendships.
What's wrong with her?
Well, she says she's unemployed, but she's looking for a job. Australia regrettably regretted the invitation. The audience didn't think she was super engaging. Democrats here at home say, don't call her boring. She likes memes.
Kamala Harris, for whatever you say about her, did connect with people culturally. There was the Brett Summer. There were all these people putting up the coconut memes.
Behind the scenes, everyone knew the Harris campaign was a lemon. One donor told an Obama guy who joined the campaign, it'll be political suicide. You're going to be a loser.
Wow.
Another told another Obama guy after Harris lost, you're just an old broken down boy. Remember, Barry had his guys run her campaign. It backfired, and he's getting the blame. One DNC insider says the old Obama playbook no longer works. Another Democrat says Barry has blood on his hands. I'm sorry. I don't want a surgeon who keeps killing the patients. The Obamas are dodging bullets, just like it's the South Side of Chicago. First, Barack called black men sexist for not voting for Harris. Now Michelle's blaming the women.
Oh, no.
There are a lot of men who have, they have big chairs at their tables. You know, there are a lot of women who vote the way their man is going to vote. It happened in this election.
Oh,
Michelle
Lord.
thinks women only voted for Trump because their husbands did. Is she saying women just do what they're told? Because Barack can't tell her what to do. If he could, she wouldn't be doing a podcast. Another former Obama guy, Rahm, is saying the whole party is just too weak and woke. Democrats are clawing his eyes out too.
Is Rahm Emanuel right here? Has your party become too woke, too non-masculine, and not talking with people about the things that matter?
No, he's dead wrong. Look, this is the party of FDR. We did originally make in America. We industrialized the entire country. It's the party that has guaranteed Americans Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid.
The Obama people are just getting shellacked. And now everybody's out for Hakeem. Unnamed Democrats say his mild-mannered personality is too meek, and his messaging is disorganized, chaotic, and aimless. Democrats say Hakeem's not a general, and we're in for the fight of our lives. The party misses Nancy, and Hakeem's a little emotional. Insiders in his office say he's extremely sensitive to criticism, particularly comparisons to Pelosi. Men should never let women drive them nuts. I never let Jessica get under my skin, ever. Hakeem's hungry for revenge. His people want a no-holds-barred fight with anyone on Nancy's team that trash-talked him. Quote, if I were downtown, I'd think twice about bringing someone willing to knife the leader for their own gain into my orbit. It's a royal rumble. Even the media is rolling up its sleeves. Stephen A., he wants to tangle with Jake over Biden-gate.
I want to know personally what role Jake Tapper played in not reporting on certain information. We saw it. How did Jake Tapper not see it? And as he continues to speak about all of this, where's his mea culpa? Because I don't see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Tapper doesn't want the heat. He's trying to get ahead of it by saying he's transitioning.
I went on a left-leaning podcast that shall remain nameless, and they asked me about my son, and I said he was, you know, he's a football player and he wants to be a policeman. And their joke was about my 15-year-old son. Oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And like, you know, that was the big laugh. And then I got dragged in the comments and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is why you are losing elections.
First of all, why is Jake in the comment section?
Mhm.
Second, why is he shocked liberals are shaming cops? CNN pushed the racist cops hoax for years. Defund the police, hands up, don't shoot. It's great his kid wants to be a cop, but Jake's not going to make the streets easy. Tapper's pretty much saying Fox was right about everything. Every
Wow.
Democrat's saying it.
I've
Mayor
been saying
Pete is hitting the podcast scene. As the Babylon Bee puts it, Dems unveil plan to win back men by having gay guy grow a beard. And now he sounds like Jesse Waters primetime. Listen.
What do you think y'all should have done differently?
One, for the love of God, figure out a way to get the schools open sooner. Obviously, pay more attention to the border. That's real, and that's going to be something that you can't just like take your time to deal with. Three, even though you spent your entire political lifetime believing that the economy and jobs are the same thing, remember that prices is just as big a part of the economy. It just hasn't come up much in the last 40 years, right?
Pete just admitted we were right about COVID, the border, and inflation after he admitted we were right about Biden's brain. So if we were right about everything, why is he still a Democrat? He's saying Democrats were wrong about everything, but what? They're going to get it right next time? You actually think if Democrats win back the White House, they're going to keep the border closed and not spend trillions of dollars and not do the whole windmill thing? if a perp with 16 felony convictions is in front of a judge saying, Your Honor, if I make bail, I swear I'll keep my nose clean this time. No bail. Here's how I know they haven't learned a thing. They just confessed to the crime of the century, having a brain dead president who didn't sign executive orders and a shadow government. And their new idea, they want to put together a shadow cabinet. Yeah. You know, like a cabinet of unelected Democrats who can run things, like kind of like what we just had. Giselle Fetterman for shadow DHS secretary. Tish James for shadow AG.
Are you
Jon
kidding me?
Stewart for shadow VA secretary. Bill Nye the science guy for shadow EPA. And Mark Cuban, shadow commerce. Kamala was a little upset she wasn't named shadow president, but she didn't qualify. She just doesn't have the lived experience. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube
that's
page
crazy.
to catch our hottest interviews and most
Shadow government. Get the fuck out of here with your craziness. Let's go jump onto this other Kamala news.
Well, I'm sure he's still more feared than Joe Biden was, and I'm sure he's more feared
No
than
doubt.
Kamala Harris if she won the election. And that is who I have to ask you about, because the former vice president has visited Australia as she spoke on stage at the 2025 Australasian Real Estate Conference on the Gold Coast over the weekend. And she is being slammed for delivering word salad after word salad. Here she is.
Wow.
You have the ability to understand the context in which you live, the context in which others live. You're more likely to then connect with them and understand what's important to them.
Why is she so
The
weird?
vast majority of human beings are very intelligent.
She talks like she's
regardless
an
of their
alien.
education level, regardless of where they're from, and intelligent enough to know whether when you are looking at them, you are looking at them with a level of respect. They will know that you are someone who is actually interested in their life and their reality and their fears and their dreams or not.
Was that an answer to a question, or was she just giving a speech? I'm so fucking confused. I think that was like a speech answer, like a word salad. Like how? Like keep your answer to a few words, lady. Like we don't need like a whole word salad, like 100 words just to answer one question. That's ridiculous. That's so ridiculous. Australia, why you let her into your fucking like why you let her in? You should have just like said no. We don't want you.
We spoke about this when it was announced that Kamala Harris would be paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to speak for an hour at this real estate conference. But now she's done it. She's spoken to the audience there. Listening to some of those clips, what's your reaction? Was it as bad as you thought it would be?
I think it's worse. I mean, what vacuous babble that is, but that's what she's known for. I mean, let's be frank, she was a circus act at this conference. She wasn't there to enlighten the Australian property industry about payroll taxes, building costs, over-regulation, planning approvals, building approvals, the shortage of contractors, the price of materials, stamp duty, et cetera, et cetera. These are the things that are of real interest to real estate agents who were at that conference, thousands of them, and people in the building industry. She comes along and gives this, you know, as you say, word salad, this vacuous babble. I mean, she was just a circus act. Let's be frank. No one learned anything from her speech. She was there for pure entertainment purposes, but you know, good on her. I gather she got $500,000 for that speech. If she can get $500,000 for saying that, I would have done it for $400 myself.
Okay.
And I know something about the property industry. So no, what a waste of space. What a waste of space.
Kroger, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thanks, Gab.
Wow, that's just so wild. Like I wouldn't pay shit to go to that. I'm like, hell to no. Hell to no. So let's go ahead and go to the next story. This one's about Louisiana. AG vows to prosecute anyone assisting escaped inmates. So that's the next segment. We're going to tap into here and see what's up.
A manhunt also underway for the remaining 2 fugitives who escaped from that New Orleans jail nearly 2 weeks ago now. Police say they should be considered armed and dangerous. Let's bring in Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill for more on this. Madam Attorney General, thanks very much for being with us. So the 2 inmates who remain at large are Derek Groves, convicted of multiple murders. He was awaiting sentencing. To say that he is dangerous, excuse me, would be an understatement. The other one is Antoine Massey. He's considered a bit of a Houdini by many people because he is a multiple escape artist. Are you confident that these 2 will be recaptured?
I'm absolutely confident that they will be recaptured, and we just are going to continue our very methodical work to get them back in custody. And we have been successful, and I'm confident that we will eventually have them back in custody. But they are considered to be armed and very dangerous. You can see from the charges that they were being held on and the convictions of Derek Groves that they are dangerous individuals.
So we had yesterday that dramatic video of the arrest of 2 of the escaped inmates in Texas. They were taken down by local authorities in Walker County, which is north of Houston. Quite dramatic video is at multiple gunpoint. They were dragged out of a car and taken back into custody, thankfully, with no bloodshed. But the fact that they got a few hundred miles away, does that give you consideration that the 2 remaining fugitives may have gotten even further away? Or do you think they could even still be hanging around Orleans Parish?
You know, there's always been the possibility that they have moved to another state if they had some help. That vehicle that these individuals were driving was rented in New Orleans, as I appreciated, and driven to the Texas area around Houston. So they absolutely could be moving to other areas. I alerted my colleagues in the states surrounding Louisiana immediately after the jailbreak to be on alert and to notify their law enforcement partners that these individuals could be coming to their states. And so we've been chasing down those leads from the very beginning to try and identify any known associates in states that may be neighbors of ours.
So a really interesting and I would also volunteer troubling aspect of all of this is that 14 people have been arrested so far for allegedly aiding and abetting
Holy
the escape itself or
smokes.
the escapee.
Wait a minute. 14 people arrested for assisting inmates? Wow, they all look the same color. I'm just saying, like, it's not racist to see what you see, and this is what we're seeing. Maybe we'll have some hopes that maybe Diamond White is white, but I have a feeling that this person might be black too. So it's like, look at all these people. Why are they covering the faces of these 2? This not to be secret. You've been caught. You've been arrested. This is the walk of shame. So their pictures need to be posted. But look at them. Let's go one by one. Look at this. Look at this one. Look at that face. Oh my goodness. Oh man, look at this. Wow. This is wild. This is wild. All right, let's continue.
Do you believe that these people were sympathetic to the escapees? Were they coerced?
You know, I think they were sympathetic. I mean, some of them are relatives of individuals who are escapees. One of them is, I think, a father of one of them. One may be a sister. Some of them are girlfriends or have, romantic relationships. I mean, these individuals are reaching out to people that they know and seeking assistance. And we are going to arrest and prosecute anyone who we find is assisting them.
So questions have been raised about the conditions in this jail. I mean, it's a fairly modern jail, but the fact that 10 of them were housed in the first floor instead of upper floors as protocol would demand, and the fact that they managed to get out en masse. We talked to former Sheriff Marlon Gusman, who ran that jail for 17 years. Here's what he told us yesterday.
We built this building with security electronics, with a lot of safety measures and detection measures so that this wouldn't happen. And it never happened when I was sheriff in this building.
So he says that there were a lot of systems in place there to ensure something like this never happened. So what is going to happen now to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, there's a lot of work underway in that regard. And I've been to the prison now twice to look at the facility and see some of the issues there. I mean, it's a 9-year-old building. It houses a population that is at least 60% violent, charged with violent felony offenses. And some people are there for lengthy periods of time. And by that, I mean 3 years or longer, 2 years or longer before they are convicted and moved to another location. So we have to address all of the kind of factors that play into the conditions at that jail. And that's part of what I've been doing by talking to everybody who has a part in that problem.
All right. Well, we'll keep on monitoring this story. Hopefully the remaining 2 inmates will be caught without bloodshed, and we'll see what you do in terms of getting that jail back on track so that 10 people don't escape at any time in the near future.
Thanks, John. We'll have recommendations this week, I expect.
Excellent. Attorney General Liz Murrow, good to catch up with you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
I think some of the money that we'll be saving, I think we should build some better jails. Like, for instance, here's another case of another escapee. This one's another one. This one's from Arkansas. The manhunt is on the way for a convicted killer. So this is the reason why I say Trump needs to build new jails in America. Let's go.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Our next story takes us out to Arkansas. Here we have a live vantage point there over Eureka Springs. So not too far away, about 30 minutes from there in Garfield, Arkansas. The
pretty area.
Continues for the devil in the Ozarks. That's, of course, if you've been following this story, you know him. He's Grant Hardin, the former police chief in the small town of Gateway near the Arkansas-Missouri border. Here is what he looks like. And like I said, he is still on the run, on the land. He's a former police chief. He's a convicted killer. He escaped prison this weekend by impersonating a guard and walking out through a gate. A guard opened for him. Now, he escaped Sunday from the North Central Unit, a medium security prison, also known as the Calico Rock Prison, by impersonating a corrections officer in dress and manner. That's according to a court document. A prison officer opened a secure gate, allowing him to leave the facility. Now, spokespeople for the Arkansas Department of Corrections described the clothes as not a standard inmate or correctional uniform. In the meantime, we did get an update on the ground there in Arkansas from officials earlier this afternoon to update us on how the manhunt is going to bring Hardin back into custody. Let's listen.
I understand you guys have a job to do, and a lot of what is going to hinge on us is help from y'all in getting this word out there. So appreciate all that. Again, we can provide a brief outline of where we are. And again, I can't really get into any specifics, but kind of where we are stand. Unfortunately, there's no new developments. We've passed the 72-hour mark from when Grant Hardin did escape. Since that time has started, there has been an ongoing collective effort with multiple agencies, state, federal, local, utilizing any and all resources that we can to track it down. Any and all leads that we are getting have been followed up on. Unfortunately, none of those have come to fruition yet, but we're hoping all it takes is that one lead that is credible that is going to lead to this. So again, the search is ongoing. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you guys may have.
We heard that some of the local departments are being told to stand back. Is the search effort being scaled back?
It's not being scaled back at all. I think the issue that we're running into is having too many people in one place at one time. I know that the search area has expanded, and so at this point, they may just be told to stay back until we have somewhere else, so there's not that much of a concentrated force in one spot.
Is it because you don't have any areas you're prioritizing?
I mean, there's a lot of different things we're following. One of the challenges that we have for this area is it is very, as you can see, it's very hilly, it's very rocky. There's a lot of places where it's very narrow to get in and it's very narrow to get out. And we've had a couple instances, I know, during this search where it's been hard we have too many people in one place and units are on top of each other trying to get in and out. It's kind of hampering it. So I think it's just trying to be very coordinated and making sure that we're spreading our resources where they need to be.
Can you talk about what some of those resources are that you're utilizing? Are you using drones, canines, helicopters?
Yeah, all of the above. We have, one of the nice things, the Department of Corrections, we have a very robust canine search team, and those are being utilized as much as we can. Drones are being utilized, aircraft. One of the hindrances we have had the last few days, you guys know, we've had a lot of rain. It's been very wet, and rain hinders those type of searches. With our track dogs, the rain can affect, them being able to pick up that track. With the low clouds, it's hard to get the drones up as high as we need to. Helicopters are grounded with all that. So we're hoping that the weather kind of turns a little bit and we can utilize more of those.
We were able to get video of helicopters hovering in the area of the prison and some officers using binoculars to look in the area. Is some of the search concentrated still around the prison?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the attitude that we take until we have credible evidence that he is not in the area, we assume that he's probably still in the area. And so that's where it is. The north central Arkansas area is where the main source of the search is at this point. And a lot of that too is just double backing and double checking to make sure we're not missing anything in the immediate area where we know for sure he was. Just double checking that area to make sure there's not something we're missing.
Can we go back to Sunday and you can talk about, we all know that he was wearing some sort of makeshift outfit that looked like he was perhaps an employee of the detention facility. And then we also saw in the affidavit that somebody opened the door for him, presumably assuming he was an employee. Can you just walk us through what we know so far about how he was able to exit the facility?
Yeah, that is our assumption, is that, everything that he was wearing is not a standard issue inside this facility. It is not there's no inmate uniform that looks like that. There's no officer uniform that looks like that. It very much and that's part of the challenge, is determining what exactly he was wearing and following up on those. Our understanding is that being he was former law enforcement, he tailored that to look like a law enforcement officer. We do have, with this being part of, facility, we do have law enforcement that comes in and out on a fairly regular basis. And that is our assumption, that he did that to try and mimic a law enforcement officer. As far as the events leading up to that, that's still being looked over and considered and analyzed at this time. And so, we believe that was the intent, was to mimic a law enforcement uniform.
Can you speak to the employee that opened the door?
All I can say at this point is there are a number of investigations and questions being asked just to ascertain exactly what happened. And that's really all I can tell at this point.
What's supposed to be the protocol in the case that Priya is talking about? How are law enforcement officers supposed to leave the prison? Are they just supposed to say, hi, open the door?
There is supposed to be a verification of who it is. And so, that's one of the things that we're looking into, is where that lapse was, and it's making sure that doesn't happen again.
Can you rule out that he didn't have any help on the inside?
We're not ruling out anything at this point. That's part of that investigation and making sure that we have all those questions answered.
Any indication that he's had help since getting out?
Again, we're looking into that as well. We have we can't comment on that this time.
Can you talk
Laura, did you? Sorry.
layers of security that Murray had to breach to get out of the prison? Was it one lapse or multiple failures?
That's part of what we're looking into as well. We have a pretty good idea of the route that he took and kind of some of those circumstances. But part of that investigation is looking into exactly what happened during that time frame and what, if any, lapses happened.
Have there been any? Have there been any credible sightings in the last 24 hours?
None to my knowledge. Just a lot of tips, but none of those have come to fruition at this point.
How confident are you that he's still in North Central Arkansas?
Based on the information that we have and the experience of our teams, they feel fairly confident that he is still fairly close to this region. We're not going to rule anything out at this point, obviously, because all it takes is one vehicle to hop in and you can be anywhere. But as of this time, they feel very confident he is still in the area.
Do you feel like you have a good perimeter set up, that if he were to try to escape this area, that he could be caught?
Sure. We're always adjusting that and seeing if we need to. It has expanded over the last 72 hours. But with all the resources and the different agencies that we have, they feel confident that the perimeter we have right now is wide enough to make sure that we can try and track him down.
Can you expand on what you just said about the search area expanding? What does that actually mean?
Just obviously, as time goes on and somebody's on foot, they can cover a lot more ground. And so just making sure, looking at possible, roads, possible, following streams, following whatever maneuvers people would take, just trying to guess and ascertain, how far somebody could travel in a certain amount of time, and just making sure that we're covering that amount of distance and that he's not slipping by.
Are you looking at nearby states? Sorry. No.
I can't speak to how much, but I know we have been in contact with neighboring states, as we normally do in these situations. Obviously, the proximity to Missouri and his knowledge, and he grew up close to the Missouri border, so obviously that is a priority as well.
Can you talk about the timeline? How quickly were you guys able to detect that he had left the facility?
That's still something we're looking into as well. From our best estimate, it was less than 30 minutes before we knew that he was gone.
And are you in contact with his family members? Is there any evidence that he could potentially be trying to communicate with them or go back there?
They have been notified, and law enforcement in that area knows that is a high priority. And from what we understand, they are being closely monitored.
What can you tell us about his time as an inmate? Was he well behaved?
I mean, it's hard to define what is, we've been asked what is a model inmate, and it's hard to define that. All I can say, if you look at his record, he had no major disciplinary actions. He had people on the inside that he had a job, and there were no serious issues that would cause a concern outside of, him just being an inmate.
You talked about the terrain and the weather, but can you also just expand a little bit on his background as a law enforcement officer and a corrections officer, if I'm not mistaken, and how that presents a unique set of challenges in this manhunt?
Sure. I mean, obviously, if you have a law enforcement background, you've had specialized training, you've had a familiarity of the tactics that are going to be used. He's not necessarily from this area, but he did grow up in Northwest Arkansas, which has some terrain similar to this. There's a lot of caves around here. There's a lot of hills. And so understanding that he may have that sort of familiarity provides a challenge.
What kind of threat does he pose to people in this area and law enforcement searching for him?
I mean, it's hard to tell. It's obviously the reason he was in prison is he has a violent background. And so at this point, we don't want to take any chances. Anyone who escapes, we have to assume to be dangerous, to be assumed, don't approach them. And so at this point, that is how we're approaching this.
And can you describe kind of the area you're looking? Are there cabins? Are there, what kind of caves? What does the area look like for searchers?
I mean, there's anyone who knows this area, there's everything. There's caves, there's barns, there's abandoned cars, there's abandoned sheds, there's residences. There are a number of, and again, it's not a flat open area. There's a lot to cover, and there's a lot to look into, and making sure that is being covered and doing due diligence is a big priority.
Okay, so you've been listening there. His name is Rand Champion. He's a spokesperson for the Arkansas Department of Corrections. Let's step away from this. We're staying, though, on top of this story. We want to go now again.
Okay, well, that's an interesting story, and hopefully they'll catch him. I mean, that'd be pretty interesting if they catch him. Let's go to this next story real quick, and then I'm going to wrap up the show. This is the last story. So let's take a look.
Right now, I do want to take a live look over Washington, D.C. and the White House as the war of words does continue between Presidents Trump and Putin, as well as other U.S. and Russian officials. President Trump appearing to give the Russian president 2 weeks to work out a deal to end the 3-year war with Ukraine. Trump recently calling Putin crazy and saying that he's playing with fire. Now, speaking from the White House Wednesday, Trump was asked about his fractured relationship with Putin, and here is what he had to say.
They say that your criticisms of Putin are simply an emotional response. And do you still believe that Putin actually wants to end the war?
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we're going to find out very soon. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, well, respond a little bit differently, but it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We have Mr. Witkoff is here, is doing a phenomenal job, is dealing with them very strongly right now. They seem to want to do something, but until the document is signed, I can't tell you. Nobody can. I can say this. I can say this, that I'm very disappointed at what happened a couple of nights now where people were killed in the middle of what you would call a negotiation. I'm very disappointed by that.
And this right here is just some of the video of what the president is talking about there. Ukrainian officials saying that Russia launched its largest drone attack on Ukraine over the weekend. The Russian bombardment Sunday night included at least 355 drones. That is according to the Ukrainian Air Force. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky adding that more than 900 drones were fired at his country over a 3-day period. Now, it's also important to note that after President Trump made those comments, we also heard from the former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now a top Russian security official. He threatened the U.S., stating this could lead to World War III. A lot to discuss here, so I do want to bring in Dimitris Sarahas, a Virginia Tech foreign relations expert, visiting professor of political science, a lot of titles there. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this morning.
Good morning, Josh. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Well, first off, I do want to start by asking you about those World War III comments that were made by the former president of Russia. He is now a top security official there in Moscow. So how much weight do those words really hold? Because you hear World War III, and that's obviously a threat to the U.S.
It's another one of the series of threats that Medvedev has sort of expressed over the last 3 years. Remember, at the beginning of the war, a similar rhetoric was coming from the Kremlin. Of course, Medvedev being the former Russian president who became president when Putin switched over to become prime minister for a short while. So I don't think that this is particularly surprising, but it just denotes a change of tone on the part of how Moscow now sees Washington. They had stopped making these threats for a while. And of course, there was a window of opportunity, particularly in the early days of the Trump administration, when the idea that Russia may be persuaded to change its ways appeared to be more viable. However, these threats seem to suggest that the talks that the president referred just there on your clip are not going the way that is envisaged. And of course, European unity behind Ukraine and additional US pressure now is making things a lot more difficult for the Kremlin. And I think this is one of the reasons why they feel the need to justify their actions by using a rhetoric that is obviously menacing and attempting to threaten or even blackmail the United States.
As we talk a little bit about these comments that have been made kind of back and forth between the U.S. and Russia, how has the relationship between President Trump here in the U.S. as well as President Putin over in Russia kind of changed over the last several days and really over the last several weeks?
You're right. It has changed, and it has changed quite dramatically. Remember that in the period before the election here in the United States in November, there were these sounds coming from the Kremlin about how future President Trump would be potentially a partner of Russia, and how a change in leadership in Washington would sort of facilitate the kind of resolution to the war that the Russians were claiming was very important to them. Now, I think what we have been able to observe is that President Trump himself has shifted his rhetoric over Putin. I think there was an idea or an assumption in the early days of the administration that coming to a resolution and starting off with a ceasefire that would then become a permanent sort of peace settlement would be pretty straightforward. And of course, we recall that in the early days, relations between President Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine were characterized by a degree of tension, precisely because President Trump believed that he's the one who will make sure that a deal is made with Putin. Now, I think what has changed is the United States has come to realize that Putin is not necessarily interested in finishing this war, which remains the ultimate objective of the White House. And so the first 30-day ceasefire idea was undermined by the Russians. And I think what we have now is again an attempt to undermine the possibility of a lasting peace.
What are we talking about as far as red lines, things that both sides are not going to budge on? Of course, we're talking about Ukraine, we're talking about Russia. What are their red lines, so to speak?
I think it's quite clear that for the Ukrainians, if they stop fighting, and if they stop fighting particularly on the border with Russia, they have no country any longer. So for them, I think the idea is simply that you have to keep on fighting for as long as the United States and Europe stands behind you if you want to have any sort of viable exit strategy from this war, and of course rely on your partners in the West to negotiate with Putin or themselves to negotiate directly with Putin. There is a possibility of doing this in Istanbul, Turkey, coming up next week in order to resolve this. For the Russians, it's quite clear that they do have the red lines, Josh, that you referred to right here. And they have to do, of course, with Ukraine's NATO accession first and foremost. Secondly, they have to do with the annexation of Crimea. I don't think Russia is willing to give back Crimea to the Ukrainian state. And it seems to me that this is something that President Trump himself has sort of tacitly acknowledged to be probably a line that the Russians will not cross. I think the real question is what happens on eastern Ukraine, how much of the territory which is currently under Russian occupation will be returned to the Ukrainians or not. I think this is really going to be a subject of a long-term peace settlement. And at the moment, all we have in front of us, once again, is probably the possibility of a fragile ceasefire.
And as we move forward, and you kind of touched on this here, where do things go from here? What is the next step in all of this as we wait for the next move? Of course, we're waiting to see if there will be any more ceasefire talks. We know that President Trump has given Putin essentially 2 weeks to make this happen. So what do we see happening here in the coming days and weeks?
Land grab.
I think that's a very good question. It's really up to American pressure, I think. If you look at what's happening on the battlefield, it's quite clear that none of the two sides is going to lose this comprehensively over the next 2 weeks. Everyone knows this. And of course, the Russians are not going to lose this. The Ukrainians are still able to resist, not least because the United States and, of course, the European Union countries and countries like Britain continue to support them militarily. So I don't think there's going to be anything happening on the military front. What may happen is in the diplomatic front that President Trump alluded to in the clip you played before. And essentially what this means is I think the United States is going to up the ante. The United States is going to put more pressure on Russia to come to the table with a serious proposal about a lasting ceasefire to start with, verify that there is going to be some mechanism that will allow for this ceasefire to last, as opposed to the previous ceasefire that collapsed almost immediately, and try really to make sure that the Russians are truthful to what they say. And if the United States and President Trump are convinced that Putin is serious about a ceasefire, then I think we can have more long-term discussions to finally lead to a lasting peace settlement, which, of course, would be in the interests of everyone involved.
And I do want to ask folks out there watching right now, we want to get their take. So you can scan the QR code here at the top right-hand side of your screen. These votes are coming in real time. But do you support the current level of U.S. involvement in the Russia-Ukraine conflict? The options there, yes, it's appropriate. No, the U.S. should do more. And no, the U.S. should do less. Again, we want to get your take. So scan that QR code, top right-hand side of your screen, or go to livenowfox.com/connect. We'll check on the results as they do come in real time. Right now, it looks like essentially the U.S. should do more is winning. But again, these votes are coming in, so it's kind of changing here on your screen as we get the results. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and discuss all of this further. Obviously, a lot to this, so we appreciate it. Anything else you want to add here before I let you go?
Thank you for having me, Josh. Just a very small thing to add here, looking at the poll you're running right now. It's good to remember, though, whether we believe that the U.S. should do more or less in this war, it's very important to keep in mind that after January 2025, speaking about a lasting peace has become again an issue that everyone, including Europe and Ukraine, is now thinking about and is now trying to bring to the table. And I think that ultimately arriving at a peace settlement is in everyone's interest.
Yeah, it should be in everyone's interest, but it takes two to tangle, right? And these two are not really working together. So I'm going to wrap up the show. Truly appreciate those who came by and watched. And for those who are rewatching, thank you very much. I appreciate it. The world is a crazy place. It's any moment we're going to witness history. And yeah, just stay tuned. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But I'll see you guys later on this evening when I do my evening show. With that said, just have a good day, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you're at. And I'll catch everyone on the flip side. And yeah, just continue just having a good day and keep to yourself. I'll see y'all later.